Hello. So last week I had shown how to create a Kubernetes manifest to deploy a pod into a Kubernetes cluster. If you're using Amazon EKS or other Kubernetes environments, that would be something you want to be able to do. However, I rarely create individual pods, sometimes for testing, but for an app that I want to run, a microservice, really, I would do something a little different. So right now, I would like to show you an alternative. Instead of creating a single pod, what we could do is say kubectl create deployment and then specify what we want that deployment to be called. So it could be called myapp. And then we can specify again a container image we want to use. I'm going to use nginx again, just because it's quick and easy. Might want a web server, but I might want 2 or 3 or 4 or 5 or scale out, scale in, maybe automatically or manually scale. But initially, I'm just going to specify a certain number of pods. I could specify replicas equal and then some number, but I'm actually going to leave that off for now and just note what the default does. So I could specify port numbers again. So port equal 80. And then again, like I did with that mypod.yaml example, I'm going to go say dry run equal client -o YAML. And this time I'm just going to save it right away, not show you the JSON and the YAML, but just boom, go right away and say myapp.yaml. Boom, created a file. So how is that different than the single pod example? One thing I want to note here, just a little bit of anatomy in the pod, is that the pod has metadata and it has data. Well, sorry, not data. That's for other kinds of objects like config maps and secrets. But here we have a spec, the specification. When that pod is running, if I use that and apply it into my cluster, then there'll be not just the metadata and the spec, but there'll also be a status. So you have the API version and the kind there. What do we get here? Let's take a look. So I'm going to go and do vi of myapp.yaml. And here we have API version is apps/v1. The kind is deployment of multiple pods potentially. However, if we look at the metadata, looks kind of familiar there. And this label automatically is called app by default. And then the name I gave for that, and that name also used as the label app value there as well. Replica count specified here. So in the English alphabet, many other alphabets, A, B, C, D, E, F, G, H, I, J, K, L, N, O, P, and then Q. And after the letter Q, what letters do we have? We have typically R, S, and T. Let's take a look here at what we have in the spec of this. Replicas, like R. Selector, specified here. A strategy, which I'm not going to talk about. In fact, I'm going to go and delete that because I'm just going to leave that as a default. And then a template is the T that we have here. And that's kind of a big thing. Now here's the funny thing. Deployments and other workload types like stateful sets and jobs and cron jobs and those sorts of things, daemon sets as well. These workloads like this deployment will create other pods. So they have a template, and in this case, the template has the metadata and the spec that's going to be used by the deployment to automatically create as many pods as are needed to satisfy the replica count. If you're doing auto-scaling with a horizontal pod autoscaler, that will be tied into this deployment and will adjust the effective number of replicas. Different story. So here, what I'm going to do is just edit out a few things just to make this simpler. Get rid of the creation timestamp, get rid of the status at the bottom, like I did with the individual pod. Get rid of the resources count. If you want to specify memory requests and limits and CPU requests and limits, you could do that there, but not doing that at the moment. Again, just pernicketyness. I just really prefer if I have the name first and then the image second, like I did with the pod declaration earlier. Creation timestamp within here, that'll be filled in for the actual pods we have. Metadata first, spec second. I think that's fine. strategy, going to delete that just for simplicity and leave the rest of this really. So that's it. So let's just take a look at that. Again, deployment, the one command used to create this right there, the result we get right here. And if we had adjust the replica count, then we could go in when we use this, say, okay, apply that, and just apply this myapp.yaml. Then we'll get a number of pods that are deployed there. Get deployment, myapp, and then we can go in and get a replica set related to that. So get replicasets or replicasets, we can spell it out. Replicasets, RS, we can abbreviate that. And here I'm going to do where the label is equal to app and then a value of my app. Sorry, double hyphen. I meant to use a single hyphen there, excuse me. So hyphen L and then app equal my app. There is one pod right there. And then we could go say, kubectl get pod or pods, po. You can abbreviate that as well. And then hyphen L and then app equal my app. And so we get that one pod. So if we wanted to, we could go in and take a look at this. If I go and say kubectl scale, and then the deployment my app, and then specify the replicas is 3, then that's going to scale out. And if we go back and do the get replica sets again, then there's still the one replica set, but notice the desired count, current count, ready count are all 3 there. And if we go and get the pods for the app, my app, then there are 3 pods here. If we scale that back in, we do the manual scaling. Again, you can do auto scaling, more on that later. We scale back into 2 or 1 or 0 pods. Let's go back to 1. Then those pods have been adjusted down to this one surviving pod that's noted here. And is that the same pod that we originally had? No, that pod right there was this one ending in the 99 Charlie Zulu 7 there. And this is this Victor 9 Lima 4 whiskey there. So different pod that actually survived the scale out and scale back in. All right. Anyway, quick couple commands here. History, pipe to head minus 10, let's say, something like that. And those were a couple commands I ran before doing this demo. And then right here, we have the commands there. Hopefully you enjoyed this demo. Thanks, and happy Kubeing. Oh, is it kubetuesday? Yeah. Whatever day you view this, let me know what else you'd like to see.